Please have some of these freshly fried ones too. On the plate are several bite-sized croquettes, along with some salad as a side dish. However, I mustn't let my guard down just yet. With extra caution, I wait for the moment Kelly returns to the kitchen and swiftly decides to switch our plates. As the meal preparation was completed, everyone started eating. Seated next to me, Kelly glances over and, with a full smile, urges me to help myself without hesitation. If you insist so much, I shall partake in the croquettes you've prepared. I took a bite, enjoying the crispy texture of the batter, the sweetness of the potatoes as they meld together down my throat. As my husband said, her culinary skills aren't bad, and I continue to eat, ignoring Kelly's confused gaze. The seasoning is perfect. How about you try a bite? She responds ambiguously and picks up hers. Then, tentatively, she takes a bite of the croquette and slowly chews. Kelly's chewing gradually slows, her face distorts, and she covers her mouth, rushing into the kitchen. Left behind, the rest of us just exchange glances. Suddenly, a scream is heard from the kitchen, and we rush over. There, Kelly is sitting on the floor, covering her mouth, her body trembling slightly. Her son rushes over, asking what happened, but she just shakes her head in response. In the sink, the remnants of what she spat out are scattered, and upon closer inspection, there are items in the croquettes that shouldn't be there. What is this? The full picture is unclear, but there seems to be some thin, thread-like substance mixed in. Upon closer inspection, it's... As I realize what's been mixed into the croquettes, I step back, covering my mouth. In the quiet night, when everyone has settled down, I'm awakened by the sound of the front door opening. I am Sarah. Just when I thought I had reached my 60th birthday, I've aged another year. As a full-time homemaker, I don't have much to boast about, but lately, I've been engrossed in my DSLR camera. Capturing casual park scenes and wild birds has become my hobby. There's someone in the neighborhood who owns a dog, and I sometimes see them walking in the park. I try to capture both the neighbor and the dog in the same frame, but it's challenging to photograph animals since they hardly stay still. On the flip side, the joy of capturing the perfect moment is unparalleled. Lucas, my son, sneaks into the living room. He had texted me that he would be late, but I must have fallen asleep while organizing the photo albums. He insists on preparing dinner himself, but I tell him to change clothes first as dinner will be ready soon. I put the pot on the stove, trying not to make noise as I lay out the pre-prepared side dishes on the table. I have to be careful not to wake Henry, my husband, who is already asleep. Finally, as I place the pasta on the table, Lucas sits down. Tonight's dinner includes pasta, spinach salad, and vegetable soup. My husband sometimes requests heartier meals. But I often tailor the menu to my son's preferences. This is my little secret. Lucas shows interest in a photo spread out on the table. It's a picture of us huddled together next to a gate of a school. He seems to have forgotten how his hat was blown away that day. I was worried about his adaptation to elementary school life, but it turned out to be an unfounded concern. He made friends quickly, often going to the park or playing card games at home. Although he occasionally forgot his homework and was reprimanded by teachers, he was not a troublesome child. Perhaps influenced by my husband, who worked in finance, Lucas developed an early interest in finance and economics, eventually enrolling in a prestigious university's economics program. After graduation, he joined a bank and has been working hard ever since. He leaves home early and often works late, which is not unusual for him. He seems to enjoy his work and never complains of fatigue. He's our pride and joy, and the thought of him getting married and leaving home someday makes me a bit sad. My husband Henry is a man of few words and rarely expresses his opinions. But, like me, he must be feeling uneasy about when our son Lucas will bring up a frivolous matter. After looking through some photos, Lucas started to clean up the dishes, but I told him to leave them since I was still up. He thanked me and said he would finish up some work in his room before going to bed. Mom, did you record that TV show? Lucas is talking about a national economic show that Henry and Lucas enjoy watching every week. Lucas usually texts me to record it if he can't make it on time, so I assured him I had recorded it. Today's episode featured a special on local supermarkets. Lucas seemed interested when I briefly shared my impressions of watching it in real time. Dinner was great. Good night. Thank you. Good night. Lucas always makes sure to express his appreciation for my cooking. When I'm unsure about the menu, He helps by choosing dishes that are relatively easy for me to prepare. With Henry, it's either anything or steak. As a representative of housewives, I'd like to declare to all men that not everyone is satisfied with a meal when they say anything is fine. I wish they would suggest specific menus from the start. After clearing the dishes, I started organizing photo albums. The album with Lucas's childhood photos also had younger pictures of Henry and me. It's striking how Lucas is now catching up to the age we were in those pictures. There are photos of him building mountains in the sandbox, picking up jellyfish at the beach, and playing tennis. Blurry memories from back then become vivid, like a movie, with just one photo. I closed the last album and put it back on the shelf. Lucas has never overslept. Even in early elementary school, he used to set his own alarm clock. As Henry and I have gotten older, we need less sleep and are usually up by 6 a.m. Lucas also gets up around 6 or 7 a.m., so we often have breakfast together. Despite working late into the night, Lucas was as energetic and clear-voiced as ever this morning. He seemed to be getting some advice on loans from Henry, but I didn't quite follow the conversation. After quickly finishing breakfast, Lucas stood up and solemnly told us he had someone he wanted us to meet. Even Henry, who rarely shows interest in others' affairs, looked up from his newspaper at Lucas. Before we could say anything, Lucas quickly left the house, and Henry and I exchanged silent glances, acknowledging that the day had finally come. Henry snorted and returned to his newspaper. A habit he has when something displeases him. He might act like he doesn't care, but I'm sure he feels a bit sad too. Our boy is finally getting married. He wouldn't choose wrong. He might be right. Since Lucas chose her, she must be a good person. I reassured myself and hung up my apron. I had planned to go take pictures in the park today, but decided against it. Seeing the children playing there would probably blur my focus. I carefully covered the lens I had polished. It was a sunny noon on a holiday. Flowers bloomed under the pleasant sunshine, and white clouds drifted freely on the wind. Yet, our hearts were partly cloudy. Today, we were to have lunch with the woman Lucas wanted to introduce. Trying not to be too formal, we attempted to stay calm, but our hearts raced as the moment approached. When the front door opened, Henry and I cleared our throats and welcomed Lucas and his girlfriend. Her name is Kelly. She's a vibrant 26-year-old who works with Lucas. Looking at her glowing skin, I thought she probably uses less than half the skincare products I do. According to Lucas, she handles individual customer service, known for her kindness and efficiency. Well regarded among her colleagues, she's a thoughtful and capable bank employee. Nice to meet you. I'm Kelly. Nice to meet you. Please come in. She entered our house. As I led her to the living room, she took a gift out of a paper bag before sitting down. The gift Kelly brought was cookies from a famous store, a favorite of both Henry and me. It's one of the top 3 renowned stores in the city, known for selling out by the afternoon, with people lining up desperately for it. She must have lined up early in the morning to buy it. Her every move exudes elegance, and her research beforehand was impeccable. Her clothes were neither too flashy nor too plain, showing a sense of style that complemented her beauty. And above all, she smelled wonderful. I made a mental note to ask her later which brand of fabric softener she uses. Henry seemed already smitten with her, bombarding her with questions since she sat down. She apparently spends her weekends bar hopping or watching makeup tutorials. Her liking for beer was unexpected, but she and Henry seemed to hit it off, discussing which bars are the best. Watching Henry's excited demeanor, I shook my head in disbelief and started preparing lunch. Kelly offered to help in the kitchen, but I politely declined, saying I just needed to serve the food and suggested she keep Henry company instead. He'd probably enjoy that more. I was impressed that she considered cooking and dining activities in her choice of a black blouse. Everything about her seemed positive. It was only a bit later that I realized I had also fallen for her charms. While eating the cookies Kelly brought, Lucas casually broached the subject. "We're getting married," he said straightforwardly. Henry and I immediately gave our blessing, confident that these two would build a happy home together. I imagined their future blissful married life and the faces of my yet-to-be-born grandchildren. I had envisioned a grand and splendid wedding for them. However, at their request, we settled for a ceremony with only close acquaintances and a standing party. The meal was modest. But upon closer inspection, I noticed luxurious items like caviar and abalone. I later learned that the concept was to offer lavish food in small quantities to consider food waste. It was a casual style popular among young people, vastly different from our wedding, making me realize how times have changed. The ceremony concluded with Kelly's bouquet toss. Caught by her friend who, not wearing a ring, appeared to be single. The wedding day, which had been sunny, contrasted with the gray, cloudy afternoon as I sat sorting the wedding photos while watching a drama on TV. The scene showed a wealthy daughter-in-law getting along with her mother-in-law. I thought a good relationship between in-laws was impossible, having seen numerous ugly fights on talk shows. While I couldn't imagine Kelly getting involved in such disputes, I had casually asked Lucas about living together. The newlyweds preferred to build a new home and live there, indirectly refusing to live with us, so we agreed to live separately. They now live in a new single-family home near our old house. They visit us often, making time despite their busy schedules. Sometimes Kelly and I go shopping together, and I regret not having a daughter as we talk about clothes and makeup. We plan to go out for beer with Henry soon. Initially, I declined, but Kelly suggested a cozy place. Her thoughtfulness has kept us close to the newlyweds. I turned off the TV and centered my favorite photo in the album. Later, I received a lot of herbs from a neighbor who owns a dog. Today, Lucas and Kelly were visiting, so I sorted out some nice herbs for them. Lucas arrived first, saying Kelly would join us after finishing a phone call. While updating each other, I remembered I had forgotten to give a thank you photo to the neighbor who gave me the herbs. I had intended to give a photo I took of a neighbor walking a Pomeranian in the park, but I had completely forgotten. I told Lucas I'd be right back and hurried over to my neighbor's house. On the way, I spotted Kelly behind a telephone pole, making a call. As I approached her, something felt off. Her way of speaking was different from her usual calm and genteel manner. Kelly never raises her voice. But the person I thought to be her sounded like a high school girl. Finally, that mama's boy is getting married, securing my future. A woman's got to marry up, right? Shocked by her words, I thought about running away to avoid confronting whether this person was really Kelly. But as her call ended, she turned around. It was indeed Kelly. Her guilty expression convinced me that she had referred to Lucas as the mama's boy.
Kelly, when you said mama's boy, were you talking about Lucas?
What are you talking about? I never said that. She replied and hurried away without allowing me to argue. Maybe Kelly has a hidden side. Since then, my relationship with her has been strained. She often ignores my messages, and the food she brings over is so salty it's inedible. I've had to throw it away. These acts of spite only happen when we're alone. Meanwhile, the neighborhood speaks highly of Kelly, praising her for cleaning up communal areas and being kind to the elderly and children. Knowing her other side, their praise doesn't sit well with me. When I subtly hinted that her cooking was too salty, she just played it off as a mistake with the amount of salt. I couldn't pursue the matter further. Even when I casually mentioned these issues to Henry and Lucas, they didn't take me seriously, suggesting I was imagining things. Everyone seems blind to Kelly's dual nature. If I openly talk about her mistreatment, they'll probably think I'm trying to frame her. Feeling alone in this situation, I'm at a loss for what to do. A few days later, Lucas invited us over for a family lunch. Despite my reservations, I couldn't find a reason to decline. I hadn't visited their new house before, but it was beautifully maintained with a fresh, new scent. The tasteful arrangement and design of the furniture likely reflected Kelly's preferences. As Lucas is more career-focused, I assumed Kelly had a significant influence on the home's interior. Kelly was exceptionally pleasant that day, offering to carry things and being careful around me, a stark contrast to her usual behavior. She took my coat and even pulled out a chair for me. Perhaps she was just trying to make a good impression in front of the family. When I offered to help in the kitchen, Kelly politely refused, urging me to relax.
You must be busy with your house all the time, right? I understand how hard it is to come up with daily menus. Let me handle this.
I agreed with her about the challenges of menu planning. But her overzealous behavior made me suspicious of what she might be hiding. A warning light was flashing yellow inside me, and I couldn't relax at my seat, constantly on guard.
What's on the menu today?
Today we have croquettes. It seemed the frying sound I heard earlier was croquettes. I'm not a fan of greasy food, but croquettes are within my tolerance. Making them at home is quite a task. Boiling the potatoes takes time, and mashing them while hot is tough. Moreover, frying is a hassle. With flour, egg, and breadcrumbs each needing their own tray, not to mention the messy cleanup from oil splatters. That's why we usually avoid frying at home. I quietly hold respect for them. Soon, the food was served. Please, have some of these freshly fried ones too. On the plate were several bite-sized croquettes, alongside some salad. There was also vegetable soup and bread. Another side dish would have been nice, but the nutritional balance seemed okay. However, I couldn't let my guard down. Waiting for the moment Kelly returned to the kitchen, I swiftly decided to switch our plates. Oh, look, a Pomeranian with a frisbee is jumping outside the window. While Henry and Lucas were distracted, I exchanged my plate with Kelly's. Lucas opened the window to check outside but reported nothing unusual. I played it off as a mistake, feeling Henry's skeptical gaze on me. He seemed to be thinking, how could you mistake anything for a Pomeranian? With years of marriage, I could read his thoughts just by looking into his eyes. I composed myself and praised Kelly's cooking to smooth over the situation. As the meal preparation was completed, we all started eating. Everyone started eating what they liked, with Henry praising Kelly's cooking skills. Perhaps she chose croquettes to cater to his preferences. Lucas also seemed satisfied, munching on a croquette. Seated next to me, without hesitation, I took a bite of her croquette, enjoying the crispy texture and the sweetness of the potatoes. Indeed, her culinary skills weren't bad, and I continued eating, ignoring her puzzled look. Eat while it's hot, Lucas suggested to a bewildered Kelly. Henry also expressed concern, asking if she was feeling all right. The seasoning is perfect. How about you try a bite? She hesitantly took a croquette, slowly chewing it. The crunchy sound was pleasant. Kelly's chewing slowed, her face twisted in distress, and she ran into the kitchen, covering her mouth. Left behind, we exchanged glances, confused about what had happened. Suddenly, we heard a scream from the kitchen and rushed over. There, Kelly was sitting on the floor, trembling, covering her mouth. Lucas asked what happened, but she just shook her head. In the sink, we saw the remnants of what she spat out, including something not supposed to be in the croquettes. What is this? It was unclear, but there seemed to be some thin, thread-like thing mixed in. Upon closer inspection, I realized they were larvae of some insects. As I recognized what was mixed into the croquettes, I stepped back, covering my mouth. Henry, looking through his reading glasses, also realized they were insect larvae and his face turned pale. I recalled seeing those larvae somewhere and searched my confused memory. Indeed, they resembled the edible maggots featured on a TV show I had watched before. According to the show, they're rapidly reproducing and high in protein, expected to become vital in solving the food crisis. I remembered vowing never to eat such bugs, even if there were no other food left on Earth. Horrifyingly, those vile maggots had been stuffed into the croquettes. Making them bite-sized must have been to conceal their presence. Kelly, what is this all about? I confronted her about this incident and all the past harassment, revealing everything to Henry and Lucas. Shocked, they both questioned Kelly. Realizing she had no way out, she confessed while choking. She didn't want to live with us or care for us in the future, so she tried to drive us away with her harassment. Breaking my spirit was her plan. So I wouldn't oppose her. Why did you switch the plates? Her suspicious behavior was obvious. Before I could explain that I sensed something amiss, Lucas spoke up. Did you really think we didn't know about your harassment towards Mom? Kelly and I, unable to comprehend, stared at him. Lucas explained that when I had subtly mentioned Kelly's attitude before. He and Henry didn't initially believe it but felt something was off, so they decided to observe her. So, was this lunch part of your plan? Yes, we suspected Kelly might try something if we had a meal at our place. They hadn't expected her to go as far as putting maggots in the croquettes and showed disgust towards Kelly. By the way, the transparent lie about the Pomeranian was clear from the start. It seemed they knew I had switched the plates, and I coughed to deflect. Henry and Lucas apologized for doubting my story. But since Kelly's true colors were exposed and we avoided eating the maggots, I thanked them instead. So, Kelly, you don't think you're getting away with this, do you? Under our collective pressure, Kelly repeatedly apologized, but Henry's lecture went on for about 2 hours. The most angry I've ever seen him. After the incident, Lucas demanded a divorce from Kelly, who begged not to be divorced, saying she'd do anything. I thought it bold of her to ask for forgiveness after such treatment. We all agreed and forced a divorce without demanding alimony. Somehow, the maggot incident leaked at Lucas's workplace, and rumors spread that Kelly was the culprit and it led to their divorce. She resigned due to her worsening reputation. A female colleague close to Kelly said the trauma of eating the maggot-filled croquettes made her nauseous even at the sight of her favorite beer. It must have been karma. When I consulted them about what to do with the wedding album, they immediately answered to dispose of it along with the data. The divorce was finalized, and the unpleasant memories were real. But I thought it a waste to discard well-composed photos. After some thought, I cut up the printed photos and completely erased the stored data. As the sky turned crimson at dusk, I decided to go out and photograph the sunset for a change of scenery. Months have passed since Kelly left and Lucas began living alone. I suggested he move back home, but he refused, saying the house deteriorates without someone living in it. The house is too big for him alone, so I occasionally clean it. While dusting, I remembered Lucas saying right after the divorce, "I'll learn from this and be more discerning about my partners in the future." We had also been naive, blinded by superficial grace and approving the marriage. We promised to scrutinize any future partner's character before giving consent. Lucas smiled sadly. Moving from the entrance to the living room, I noticed a photo frame on the shelf. Was it their last time? It held a photo from a family trip to a countryside for Lucas's job celebration, taken by a passing couple against the autumn leaves. With Henry disliking photos, it was rare to have all three of us in one frame. I wondered why Lucas chose this photo, feeling the emptiness echo in the house. I couldn't fully grasp his intentions, but felt no need to understand. Embracing the photo frame, I cherished our precious family's future.